finally, we have Paige Scott. Woo! Paige Scott is another theater goddess. She does everything, and it's wonderful. And tonight, let's see, something about musicals, comedy, whimsical things, and geese. Geese are apparently agents of Satan. And look for her in Drank Spirit in January. I just want to get that out before, she starts talking, and you probably want me to shut up now and listen to Paige, right? Woo! Okay, here's Paige.
I didn't practice this with the mic, so this should be interesting. Like she said before, can we just, show of hands, who believes that geese are the agents of Satan? Yes! Yes! So, everybody's telling God stories. I want to tell a little God story with my goose story. So, when God created the heavens and the earth, and decided he was going to make this troublesome specimen called man, he also made a deal with Lucifer. God said, I made one complicated nuisance, and then I made other complicated nuisances, and then I let that one thing name the rest of them. So, Lucifer, I'm going to give you one. And so Satan snickered and was like, that's what devils do, they're like, and he took the dirt from the earth, shaped a base, shaped a neck, a head, and a beak, covered it in feathers, and presented it to God and was like, nailed it! So as you can see by my little sermon and my little origin story that wasn't put in Genesis, I don't have that high regard for these creatures. They are mean, they hiss at you, their poop is disgusting. So the story I'm going to tell kind of conflicts with everything that I hold near and dear according to my heart. So it starts, I used to work at a processing center on the west side of Indianapolis. And surrounding the building was this swampy-like area. I mean, it wasn't like a lake, but it was murky enough to attract geese and other like woodland creatures that like those kind of things. So there was this family of geese who would just hang around the entrance of the building, and some mornings I approached that entrance in absolute fear. So like picture me, it's like 8 a.m, like I have coffee and a messenger bag in one hand, and there's just 4 or 5 geese just hanging out, waiting, lurking, and they can hear you as you approach, and they just turn their heads. You can't sit with us. So you stop there petrified, mean, and it's like Tombstone in the OK Corral, because you're just like frozen and they're frozen. There's there. They look at you, you look back. One cocks its head, you cock its head back. You blink. They don't blink because they can't. And you just stay there and you're excited when. That's what you say to them. And then bam, you just run straight through the door, right? Just runs right through them. They'll just part ways, they'll scatter around, feathers flying, and you just better hope by the time you get to that door that the security guard isn't taking a nap. Because if they're not there, they're just gonna rip you limb from limb. And then at that point you're like Muldoon in like Jurassic Park, like shoot her! Shoot her! Just at the door. And then once you're finally in, it's not that bad, and you turn around and they're just there waiting. Like, next morning, next time I got you. And they continue on doing their goosey things. Whatever the hell they do. So, needless to say, these creatures pictures frighten me, but I'm going to talk about one of these geese. And a man named Chris. Now Chris was sort of an IT specialist at the processing center, and he was kind of like everyman. He kind of had like this heroic swagger about him, and it wasn't like a Ryan Gosling and Crash heroic. It was like Paul Blart and Mall Cop. Like you know the type, like confident, sure of himself. But Chris had a nicotine addiction that he was not going to let anything or anyone disturb that habit. He was not afraid of the geese. The geese ruled the entrance and they ruled the smoking area. And some of the people like aren't as brave as Chris. I mean, some of them stayed inside, some of them vaped, some of them got the patch. Not Chris. Not Chris. He was going to have a good old-fashioned cancer stick, and if he got squawked at, he was going to squawk back. Now, remember the fable that I told you at the beginning? I think the reason for this, I will explain this to you scripture-wise. So, man was created by God, and geese were created by Satan, and Chris, being of man, he knew that he was on the side of righteousness, sweet tobacco-flavored righteousness, and if it were a battle between him and the geese, he knew that the geese would lose. So, one afternoon, he was out on his smoking break, and one of these geese separated from the family and just squawked at him, like, said the goose. Chris, sup? Chris said to the goose. And the goose looked up and was like, nope. Chris said. The goose said back, not gonna happen, toots. This swagger. And this back and forth went on for 4 or 5 times because Chris just liked to address animals like they're human beings. You can't just tell me what I'm saying. And he stumped out his cigarette, looked at the goose, and the goose looked back, and they were both sizing each other up. Chris swaggered and just went back inside, doing his human things. And after a few weeks of this routine, the goose kind of grew accustomed to Chris like breaking the protocol and invading their territory. And like Chris was just gonna smoke and it was gonna be fine. And this same goose would come up and just sit next to him and would waddle to his feet and just be calm. And the goose looked up at Chris and was like, and then Chris said, love. And he took a long swig and then he looked at the goose and was like, what you thinking about? The goose said. And after that, it never was the same, for in that complacent sigh of that goose cast a spell on Chris that was unbroken, for that goose decided it was going to imprint on him. So, when Chris went back into the building, that goose lost its flipping mind. For hours, this goose would just squawk at the door, and she would not shut up until he would come out. And it happened all the time. And like, he would come out, what do you want? The goose would just look at him, not say anything, and then would be quiet. And then he would come back, and then the goose would lose his flipping mind again. And it happened in the office rumor around the office at this point was that this goose was Chris's crazy girlfriend. And so they named her Lucy. loosey goosey because we have no imagination. Y'all saw that coming. What are we gonna name a goose? Lucy. Gosh, Lucy goosey. Oh man. But the thing that was special about Lucy, yes, I'm praising a goose. She was smarter than the other geese. When she cast this spell of imprinting, she memorized his scent, but also memorized like his frame and would follow him from window to window and actually memorized his patterns. So if he needed to go to the copy machine on the other side of the building, she would appear magically in the window just squawking like, ah! Chris is just like praying that the sound of the Xerox machine would drown out his crazy girlfriend's freak out. And so that carried on for a long time. But another thing that was great about Lucy is that like she also memorized when the smoke breaks were. So like when it got to the smoke breaks, like she'd just be sitting ready waiting for Chris to come back. And she would be quiet and we would all know in the office because it was quiet. And after a while, like after a couple of weeks, like Chris was no longer he wasn't smoking. He kind of arranged his day not for the smoke break, but hang out with the goose. So, yeah, I know. Sweet. And so, like, one afternoon they sat real quiet, and I really enjoy this, Chris said. Lucy said, and at that moment, Chris made up his mind and he began to devise this brilliant plan. And he oddly felt responsible for this goose because, I mean, like, because of him, she's a squawking mess when she's not without him, right? Right, girls, right? So he'd not smoked a cigarette in almost a month, and he was like, maybe this goose is good for me. I'm gonna take that as a sign. And like, but she was no longer hanging out with the other goose family, so like, it wasn't the fact that she was uncool, but you know, animals are weird, and they make up their own rules, and geese are evil. So, and he thought, I have an apartment complex with a lake. She could stay there, and I could take her home with me, and then she could fly south for the winter, and she could fly back in the springtime because she automatically knows, right? So that next day he brought bird seed and a cage. And he had a spring in his step, and everybody in the office like knew, like, oh, this was the day. This is the day. I'm gonna have to hear this squawking ever again. It's gonna be amazing. And Chris was like, yes, I'm gonna get my goose friend. It's gonna be amazing. And he got out there with the carrier. He put the bird seed down in the carrier, and he knew that there was something wrong. And then he went to the side of the building and he found her, and there were claw marks on her. And a raccoon killed her in the middle of the night. And I hate geese. But there was something about this goose that kind of inspired me. Because like I was kind of in a spot where I'm like, I don't know whether, I don't, like in my own romantic life, I'm like, should I go after this thing that I want? Should I? But I'm like, God damn it, this bird's doing it. Why am I? And it wasn't just a sad day for Chris. It was like a sad day for that whole office because. Yeah, what I just said, we were so happy. We're like, thank God the squawking is gone. And then the squawking really is gone. And the office was very, very, very quiet from that point on. And like, it just kind of lost its personality. I guess what I'm saying with this story is that I don't know if there is an algorithm to why some people get what they want and others people don't, and when it comes in love, but like in having the capacity to love. But I guess it is, that capacity to love is everywhere, even in the satanic heart of a goose. So that's the end of my story.